Hello, and welcome to the podcast club on this morning, day, afternoon. It depends on what time you're watching it. I'm not going to question it. Today we have a very special guest star, Mrs. Sicipio, or would you like, if you'd like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Bryn Sicipio. Thank you for having me. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in Pennsylvania and an addiction specialist. Happy to be here with you guys.
And how's the rest of the cast and crew doing on this somewhat warm day?
I mean, pretty good, I guess. I've kind of mellowed out after 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Fair.
My internet back.
I'm doing good though. And let's just start on with the questions.
Cool. So first question is just a little bit of an introduction, just for those watching, I guess, at home. I guess just as a general overview, like how would you explain your job to somebody who has no idea about therapy and that as a whole?
So my job is a therapist, and you can be a therapist in many different settings. You can be a therapist in a place where people live, like an inpatient treatment center or a residential treatment center. You can be a therapist that works in a community mental health agency. You can be a therapist that works in schools, like you guys have guidance counselors at school. But where I'm a therapist at is I have an outpatient private practice. So people come to see me about once a week, and we sit down once a week, and for about 50 minutes, we talk about what's happening for them in their life. Sometimes I meet with families. Sometimes I meet with people who are in relationships with one another, whether they're married or just in romantic relationships. Sometimes it's siblings. And we, through the use of things that I had learned in school, certain techniques and interventions and ways of talking to people, really support people in having mental wellness in their life.
That's good.
All right. And our second question was, why did you choose to come on to the podcast? And before you explain, I would like to give just the viewers at home a little background. Our very first video, Miss Bryn had come on and said that they would love to be a special guest.
Which was a very big step for us because we didn't expect for us to take off.
No, yeah, we didn't expect for that. And I personally found it absolutely hilarious that on our first video, the very first person to outreach to us was a therapist.
Like,
It seemed like we needed mental help.
well, no, it's just like not anything bad. We just found it like to have somebody decide that they want to join this group, but also somebody of like an actual, like profession and not just like another student that happens to watch our videos.
So a couple different reasons. One, I have been a guest on other podcasts before and talking about mental health, talking about therapy, and any opportunity that I have to destigmatize therapy, to destigmatize addiction, mental health, I really like taking that opportunity. Second is I think it's absolutely amazing that you have a podcast club at school. That was certainly something that was never present when I was in high school. And I think it's wonderful. And I think that it's a really cool platform. And I just wanted to support you in this growth of the podcast club.
Yeah, hopefully this will build up a little bit more speed. But yeah, those are some neat answers. Next slide. And for those watching at home, yes, we did add animations. We upgraded our area. We are now having formal animations.
We upgraded the 5G network.
Yes.
Yeah, we finally have money.
Being a social job, how has the pandemic affected your job as a counselor?
Well, for one, before the pandemic happened last year, I was meeting with people in my office and in person. So now everyone that I meet, I'm seeing over telehealth. If you're familiar with Zoom, I use a platform called Doxy, which is similar to Zoom, similar to Google Meets, things that we're doing today. So that has been one major change for a lot of people. The second way that it's affected my job is actually we have seen a pretty sharp increase in the amount of people that are calling and saying things have really been hard for me. My normal coping skills, my normal outlets of getting together with friends and family, going to the gym, going out to eat, being able to connect with other people has really been limited because of social distancing and staying away and, restaurants being closed and gyms being closed. So I kind of don't necessarily know what to do with myself. And therefore my stress has been getting worse. My anxiety has been getting worse. My patience has been really low. Different things like that. So those, I would say, are the definitely two primary ways in which the pandemic has affected. And it's not just me, it's many of my colleagues in the field. Many therapists are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, but it's good that there are still outlets. Like, you're not like alone in your own little bubble.
Yeah. The one thing that's been hard for some people, I know that for some clients, is that it's been hard for them to find a therapist that has availability. So because there's been such a sharp increase in people coming into the world of therapy, there's only so many hours in a day. So I've brought on additional therapists in my practice so that way we can continue to serve people as they come in. But there's been a lot of people that say, like, I have a waiting list. I have a friend who runs a community mental health agency, and I had contacted her the other day about something, and she said to me that they had 200 people on their waiting list.
Wow.
Which I don't even know when you get to 200 people, but yeah. So for communities and for some people, it's been really hard to get connected because there's been such an influx.
Yeah,
Just
I feel
to
like
help-
it's excessive.
Sorry,
that way.
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like it's a bit excessive, that waiting list. Like, it's actually crazy how the pandemic has affected some people's mental health.
Yeah. Well, two things, Taylor. Like, not only has it been the lack of being able to connect to your coping skills, but a lot of people that I work with really struggle with alcoholism and really struggle with using drugs. So these are people that, have full-time jobs, that are showing up to work every day. Something that has happened for them during the pandemic, like you guys, you've been in school, right? So for them, prior to the pandemic, having to get up, having to go to work, not wanting, they want to keep their jobs. They want to arrive on time. They don't want to smell like alcohol. Like, all those deterrents have been removed because now they're at home and they can just jump on a computer and turn their camera off. No one knows that they are hungover, right? No one knows that they're not really showing up late because they just turn the computer on. So as long as they wake up, it's not an issue. So those have been other things that have been, struggles for people as well, too.
It's quite the situation that we have ourselves on in this year of 2021 and 2020.
Okay, but like you said before, I think you said there were some 200 people on your friend's waiting list. Just to kind of help put that in perspective, how many people are usually on the waiting list?
Yeah.
Right. So she works at a community mental health agency. It's a very large agency in Philadelphia. It has, I want to say she probably has around 20 therapists working on staff there. If they have a waiting list, I would say it's probably less than 10, and it's probably like a 7 to 14 day waiting list. So it's something that is probably present, and I can check with her on this after we're finished and let you guys know for sure. But it's never like that. I mean, that's really unheard of. That's unheard of anywhere.
10, 20 times the amount of people. It's a pretty large fluctuation.
Definitely.
I actually have another question that goes with this one. So, as someone who's like seeked therapy for other reasons, do you think that the online visits are as effective as in-person visits?
There's definitely strengths and limitations to both, right? So a lot of people that I work with are saying they like teletherapy and they like doing online visits, as you're saying, because they don't have to drive to the office. Some people that I work with have kids that are old enough to watch a movie while their parent is in therapy, but not old enough to be left at home. So when they can just go into a different room, then therapy is more accessible to them. I have some other people that have traveled or have had to stay with family members during this period of time, and they wouldn't have been able to make that drive into the office. So a lot of people really like that accessibility of just going online, clicking. It's quick. They don't have to take extra lunch breaks from work, different things like that. Pieces that are missing for me when it comes to teletherapy is I'm only seeing them in a very small snapshot. So I don't see if their leg is shaking because they're so anxious, right? Or I can't tell if someone has been so depressed that they haven't been able to shower for several days. Things that you can tell by seeing someone in person are missing for me. So again, the accessibility is there, but then my ability to understand and assess the full person and to see what's happening for them besides what they're telling me, that is a piece that's missing.
So the social and physical cues.
All the nonverbals, yes.
It's really weird to think about that, just like as an online environment. Like if somebody just turns their camera off, then like you're only hearing them, like you can't see like the hand expressions or like shaking in place that a normal person would have when talking.
Right. But even if they have their camera on, I'm only seeing them from like the neck up, right?
Yeah, like 1/4 of
Leg is
them.
shaking because you're like, I'm shaking my leg right now. Can you tell?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Right. Or if your hands are shaking and you keep your hands in the lap, or if you're fidgeting with something, or, whatever the case may be, you really have a lot of control over what you want me to say.
Yeah. Here we go. Next question. What made you want to become a counselor? And I'm sure that you must have gotten this question quite a handful of times based on your expression. But
So I want to ask you guys a question first. This was not my first career after college. So I would like to ask you guys first, what do you think I did before I became a therapist?
It's never what you expect. So
I want to say a lawyer, just something really out there. I'm going to say a lawyer or something involving law.
Okay. What other guesses?
I would say physical therapist.
A physical therapist? Okay. What else?
I'm saying you didn't have a job before that because I don't feel like anyone wants to be in PT, even as just as the physical therapist.
Okay.
I can't think of anything, to be honest, because Jack said lawyer, and that would have been probably one of my guesses. I'm not really sure what else to guess, so I guess I'd just go with Jack, lawyer.
2 for 2.
Okay. So I will let you know. Jack, you were the closest.
Yes.
You did not win, but you were the closest. So my undergraduate degree is in criminal justice. And I worked as a probation and parole officer.
That's
I
neat.
should have said that too, because I was thinking of like shows that have to do with like FBI and stuff, and I was thinking like
Law and Order.
criminal justice related stuff.
Right, exactly. So I was a probation and parole officer, and as you can imagine, a lot of the individuals that I was working with had a very extensive history of drug or alcohol addiction. And I got to a place working there where I said, like, I want to do something different. And I literally sat down at my computer one day. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I said, there's a million colleges around here. Let me read about every single graduate program that has to do with connecting with people or helping people and see what I can find. And long story short, I went to LaSalle University. I worked full time during the day and went to graduate school at night and interned at night. And it took me 4 years, but it was absolutely worth it. And then I made the transition of, beginning to work as a therapist full time. So that's how I got there. I just wanted to, I knew I wanted to help people out, and what I was doing in my role as a parole officer wasn't fulfilling the way in which I thought I could really support and help people.
Oh, that's really cool. How long were you the parole officer thing for before you became a counselor?
I worked there for 7 years. And during that time, I was also in school.
7 years.
Yeah. So I worked there for 3 years, and then I started my graduate program, and then another 4 years working full time, and then going to school at night.
So what is your favorite thing about being a counselor?
Okay. So what I love, oh God, I have to say there's a lot of different things I love about my job. One is it just, part of it matches my general personality, right? So I am, as you can probably tell, a pretty extroverted person. It's very easy for me to talk to people. I enjoy learning about other people. I would love to go to any place in America and sit down and talk with anybody. Shows on television where people share their life stories. I love listening about, I love reading about, I love watching. So part of it is it's a very good match for my personality as far as my interest in the human development and in, relationships. The people that I see, or a lot of people, the majority of people that I see in my practice are coming in because they are struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, or they are in a relationship with someone who's struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, or they are adults who had, a pretty tumultuous childhood because their parents struggled with drug or alcohol addiction. What I love about working with people who have had that experience in their life is the ability for healing and the depth at which people understand themselves and understand their relationships. So, for example, when I have someone who comes in and they are really struggling with alcoholism, and through our work and through things they're doing outside of the therapy room, they are able to sustain a life of recovery, right? So they have years of sobriety under their belt. What really has happened is they have taken their broken brain, right? If we can look at addiction as a disease and say their brain was broken, and they have used that broken brain to heal and repair itself. It's like a borderline miracle. And to be able to witness that, and to be able to witness how and be a part of how people completely change their life, complete 180, it really is a gift. And it's really incredible to witness the miracle that can occur in people's lives.
So it's extremely rewarding for both you and the people or persons that you are helping.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's things that people tell me that no one else in the entire world knows, right? And so I don't thrive off of that like I'm narcissistic, like, oh,
Yeah.
tell me everything, right? But I really value how much trust that people can build in their relationships, and that people can be so honest with themselves too. Because some of the things they tell me, it's like things they don't want to be honest about and things that they feel really bad about.
So this is our final question, just to wrap it all up. Any advice for high schoolers, just as like a general demographic? What would be your best advice?
Don't care about what anybody else thinks. When I would love to give you advice on like careers and relationships and mental health, and when I think about all that, I think it just boils down to just do what makes you happy. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Do what feels good for you. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm not like a crazy like 8 million quote type of person, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this one, but it says, speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Right? So I'm sure we've all had those moments where we had to say things that were hard or uncomfortable and our voice gets shaky. But that would be my advice for high schoolers as a whole. Don't care about what anybody else thinks, and speak your truth even if your voice shakes.
It's very poetic.
Yeah, I definitely could not have said that better, because
I mean, in a good way.
I've tried to basically be like, I've tried to help like friends before because I've helped people who've gone through bullying before, because I usually become friends with people who get bullied, and then I usually help them a little, because I went through bullying for quite a while, so I know pretty much how to help people deal with it, and emotionally and physically. So I've helped people with it a little, but I could definitely not have said that.
And I think stuff like that is kind of, I don't know how to say this other than we're most, like Taylor, how you said you help people through bullying. I feel like it's kind of just we're just like doing therapy as well. Like obviously with not as much in depth as you can, Ms. Bren.
You're just being a support. You're being a good friend.
Yeah, and I feel like that's really just the greatest way to have a relationship with like anyone, friends, family, whatever, just have it grow. Because they already know you're a nice enough person to help them throughout whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen to me. It's hard for adults to open up and to support one another and to not let their own fears of judgment get in the way. So if as freshmen in high school, this is an ability that you have, is to let other people know that they can come to you and that you're not going to judge them and that you're going to listen to them and you're going to care for them. That's an incredible gift that you're bringing to your relationships. And that's, how people will build trust with you. Trust is built not through not hurting one another, but trust is built when people can share hard things with one another and when they can stay connected. That's how you build trustworthy relationships.
Everybody needs in their life.
Going back on something you said, you were talking about being honest with yourself, even if you were hurting yourself or you just don't like what you're saying about yourself in the process. I do that sometimes, but I do it to improve upon what I'm doing. Like I recognize my own flaws.
Mhm.
It may be a hard truth about something that I do or something that I've done, something that I think, but it helps me personally to improve upon whatever that thing is.
Right. So picture it, Chase, this way. We got to put everything on the table, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. So first, that's that honesty, is putting everything on the table. Well, then we got to pick it up and do something with it. Okay. But if we're not putting it all on the table, then we can't do anything with it. There's nothing to pick up. So even when it feels really hard, even when it feels bad, embarrassing, shameful, silly, you got to put it on the table, because that's the only way that you can change and do something different with it.
Well, on that note, Ms. Bryn, thank you for your time and coming to the podcast club and being a part of our little mini community that we're hopefully setting up to those watching at home.
I love it. I think you are all wonderful. And I think you guys have a great career, or at least hobby, in podcasting. But this has been really enjoyable. I think you guys have really come up with some wonderful questions. I hope that I answered them effectively and clearly. And this was really a lot of fun. So thank you very much for having me.